Hi, everybody, and this is Judy. I'm Judy, and Stacy is with me, and we are going to start in about 2 or 3 minutes. We want to wait for a couple more folks to get on, and we'll talk about a little bit what's going on and how this is going to work today. I'm very excited about how this is going to help some people to move on with homeschooling and to try something new with their kids, and hopefully everybody gets a lot out of it. All right, so let's get started, and wanted some music going so we could dance, but I guess not. So we'll figure that out before lunch. So basically we have, can you put my schedule back up, Reagan? Thank you. We have a lot of stuff to do today. So we've got, from now until 9:30, we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. I want to talk to you about who Stacy and I are, and some of the things that I put up on your dashboard so that you have those in order to refer to later, and also refer and print out for some of the things later on this morning. At 9:30, we have our first speaker, and she's going to come on and talk about 3 ways to get yourself ready for success with homeschooling and your mindset and things like that. And then after that, Stacy and I will talk for a little while about legalities and other things like that for Texas, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break. So the first break will be at 10:30, and it will be for about 15 minutes. So hopefully we can stay on time and we'll be good to go. So my name is Judy Peterson, and I homeschooled my kids for, I think we went 15 years. And we started when they were in kindergarten, when my daughter was in kindergarten. My daughter's 2 years older than my son. And then my son, he was 3 at the time, and he would sit in on the lessons. So he actually learned how to read before my daughter did, but that was because we didn't know she had dyslexia until much later. So I'll probably talk a little bit about that later on. But yeah, my son's over here making faces like, but yeah, they were good kids, and but he's doing our tech today, so I have to be nice to him. And let's see what else. I was more of a kind of an unschooler, not completely, because we did do math and we did do curriculum, especially when they were very young. But most of the curriculum I chose was very hands-on and very kinesthetic, because both of my kids learn better doing things. I think all kids pretty much learn better doing things than just sitting there reading and writing on a workbook sheet. So that's what we did. And then I had, when they got to high school, we did speech and debate, and I'll talk about that later on probably as well. But that was how we structured our school day, was very much around, I had a business at the time, and so it was very much around what we did. For my business, I worked it around the kids, and then it was a business, thank goodness, that worked with businesses that do that market to parents. So I could take my kids with me when I went to do calls and things like that for sales calls. So Stacy is going to take on, she's going to tell us a little bit about herself, and then I'm going to go over some of the stuff that we have on our dashboard. So go ahead, Stacy.
My name's Stacy Chairman. I homeschooled my kids for a combined total of 19 years. Started when my son was in 2nd grade, when we moved and we were having a house built, and so I really didn't want to start him in one school and then move him to another one. So and at that time the private school options were just pretty far away from where we lived. So I thought, well, we'll just homeschool for right now. And so homeschooled him for 2nd and 3rd grade, and put him back in private school for 4th grade, and then pulled him out in 5th grade and homeschooled him all the way through. He's now 29, and he has not finished his college degree, but he's like a year away, and he works at a bank in California, and is doing great out there. My second son, we homeschooled him from first grade on. He did go to private school for kindergarten as well. And he has graduated from college and is, I don't even know what his title is, acquisitions manager for an oil field company, which is now transitioning into something else because of COVID. So anyway, but he's doing great too. My daughter has homeschooled all the way through. My middle son went back to public school his junior and senior year, and I'll talk about that later on whenever we have get into all that stuff. I forgot what block, but anyway, so, but he did go back to public school for a little while. And then my daughter homeschooled all the way through, and she took some time off from school and has been working, and now she's ready to start back at college, and she would like to be a veterinarian. So she's got a lot of school ahead of her, but now she feels like she's ready to do that. And so it's been fun. It's been exciting. It's been exhausting. Trying to, there's a lot of pressure on homeschool moms to think that, you're doing everything. And so it is great to have a group of people to talk to and to understand that, you can do it. So I'm excited for this conference and to help people as they start their homeschool journey, or as you're on your way on your homeschool journey. No matter what stage, I've had kids in that stage. So that's about me.
On your dashboard, if you get a chance to do this, we have little emojis that I did up, and print them out on a piece of paper and just cut them out in a little circle, and you can show us your love, or show us that you got an idea out of this. And there's also a smiley face and a laughing face. So I hope you enjoy those. I thought they were a lot of fun. I also put a sheet called the Big Y on there, which we will probably want at around 10 o'clock this morning. And we're going to talk about, no, I'm sorry, we're going to do that one after our first break. So hopefully you can go print that out during your first break, and we can work on that afterwards. I also put some resources that we put together for high schoolers and for parents of high schoolers that gives you a bunch of different links on things to do. I'll be adding more as the day goes on, and for sure for tomorrow as well. A little bit about my history is I was in South Carolina when my husband was in the Navy, and we moved to Corpus Christi, Texas after that. And then we waited 8 years before we had kids. So I was a little bit older when we started our homeschooling journey. The homeschooling journey was actually my husband's idea. He was the one who thought, oh, I really like this idea. He'd been listening to some radio shows that had been talking about it. And we had always been watching the homeschool system, watching the school system, and I hadn't even thought of homeschooling, because when I was growing up, homeschooling, we had some weird people down the street. They had 12 kids, and the dad was Mormon and the mom was Catholic, and all the girls were raised Catholic and all the boys were raised Mormon. It was very weird, and they took their kids out when I was probably in third grade, and I had to have been in fifth grade, which means that their youngest, or their second youngest, was in third grade, because she was the same age as my sister. It was my sister's best friend. So we watched that, and my mom had been a public school teacher, and she was like, oh no, she's crazy. I don't know how she could possibly do that. And so it was not something that I had ever really considered doing. And of course, both my parents were teachers, so that was kind of an odd thing too. And so when we decided to homeschool, it's funny, the teachers, my mother and father, didn't really have a problem with us homeschooling, but my mother-in-law and my father-in-law were very worried about my children. So I mentioned earlier that Victoria, my daughter, she's 21 now, but she had learning issues. And so she had dyslexia, which we did not know. And so about second grade, I had been teaching them phonics since kindergarten. My son could read perfectly from the time he was 3. And he was on the exact same program because I was doing it together with my daughter. And my mother-in-law came into town, and she had a friend in town who did reading diagnosis because she worked as a special teacher on reading at the schools. So she didn't tell me, but she went and she took my daughter to be tested by this lady. So I get this thing in the mail that says, your daughter can't read, you need to put her in public school. Yeah, exactly. And it was crazy. I was just like, first of all, I can't believe you did this without telling me you were going to do this. And I knew the lady, but she was just so anti-homeschool. It was crazy. But looking back on it, a couple of years ago, when we figured out she had dyslexia, I'm like, how come this lady who's supposed to be so perfect at all of this reading stuff didn't catch that my daughter had dyslexia? So she must have been good enough at the reading for her to fool somebody into thinking she didn't have a learning disability. She just was stupid, or her mother wasn't teaching her good enough. So I don't know. It always kind of rankled me that she did that. I've forgiven her now, and she's happy now that I homeschooled my children, because my children are really, they turned out really good, thank God. But once we figured out my daughter had, and actually I think that probably was helpful, because that is probably when I started looking at what other things we could do than what I was already doing. Because when my daughter read, she would read a sentence phonetically, and then she would go back and she'd read it regular. So she could read, but it took her twice as long because she was doing it twice. And so that was the thing that the teacher picked up on. And so that was one of the things that we got scolded for in the letter that she sent me. But let's see what else that was. So we switched, after I had done phonics for 3 years, we switched to a whole word method so that she could start recognizing words. And then later on was when we figured out that she had the learning disability, probably not until junior high. We had another friend, Karis Ashmatat, who was talking about how when she reads words, she has dyslexia. When she reads words, they actually move around on the page for her, and they change like directions, and they change the words up. So when she said that, my daughter went, yeah, that's what happens to me too. And I was like, oh, hello, we got a light bulb moment here. So that was one of those things that it really kind of took me by surprise. But we had, when they were about 6, we had started, she loved reading, and she loved me reading to her. She didn't like reading to herself, but I read to them every night until she was like 12. So I would read to them at night, and she wanted to hear stories all day long. And you can't do that. You just can't. So we went over to the public library, and they had all of these cassette tapes. And so we would get the cassette tapes and the CDs. And there's a library over there called Flower Bluff Library. And she literally listened to every single CD or cassette tape that they had in stock over there. And we had to switch to another library when it was built so that she could listen to new stuff. But she would do that. She would turn it on, and she would either clean her room, or not usually, but she would do something like art or something like that, and just entertain herself all day long by listening to these stories. But the thing about the things on CD and books on tape is normally there's only the first book, maybe the second book is on the books on tape. So she would get into a series, and she'd be, two novels into this series, and she couldn't hear the rest of the story. So she had to go and find the book, and that's when she started to read on her own in her own time. And it probably takes her, I don't know, 3 times as long as it takes anybody else to read, but she does it. She wants it so bad that she will go out and she will get books like that thick in order to go and read to herself these other stories. And now that Audible's there, and the the things they have, the free ones that they have on their library. She's always listening to something. And so when the high school came along, I kind of helped her with her literature and things like that. I allowed her to use the audio resources to get the literature into her head, as opposed to making her read it all, because it just takes so much longer. And it didn't, she became an audio learner because of all the audio that she had consumed. And so she does much better if she listens to something than if she tries to read it, because of the struggle. That's kind of my story on the challenges that we've had. Allison was a professional educator and author. She loved teaching in the classroom, but always knew she'd homeschool her own children. She now has a 14-year-old homeschool veteran and a mother of 2. She helps other families through the transition to homeschooling and beyond through Good Schooling, an online homeschool coaching program that serves parents all over the world as they seek to give their children the education they deserve. And we do have over on our on your dashboard, you'll have a link to her website and her information. And she does have a Facebook group as well, which is a really cool group. So I'll let her tell you all about that stuff. And I'm going to mute Stacy and we're going to bring Miss Allison up.